We just came out of the opening skill set. The opening skill set really begins to set the roadmap, the agenda, the journey that you're going to take together during this entire sales call. Now, how do you go down that road, and where do you stay on the road, and do you get off the road, and how do you get back on track on the road? All depends, and all is functioning as part of this group called, or the skill set called, probing. Brian Tracy, who's another writer of many books on the subject of selling, often writes, "The future belongs to the askers." And it's so true, because in this skill set called probing, this is the one that you're able to really control and, if you will, manipulate to a good way how the conversation's going to go. Because if someone is going to detract you, or if someone is going to try to take you off your game, this skill set is the first skill set that we are going to employ to get back on track. And that is, we're going to ask a couple of questions. So for instance, one of the things that always seems to happen in our world is, well, we might present our stuff or give a price, and the first thing a customer says is, your price is too high. It happened to me. But what was really ironic about it is it happened to me in a situation where I hadn't even presented pricing. They've never even gotten pricing from us before. And what was really funny about that whole thing is, before I could even say what our price was, this person immediately, like an automatic response, said, "Your price is too high." And instead of reeling back and going, what do we do with that? I remember my training from back when I went through sales training and a similar program like Selling by Design. And I said, "Price is too high. What do you mean by that? Give me some context." And really, when we look at probing, there's a couple of different goals that you have with probing. And you really want to take folks down this road to get a clear, mutual understanding about what's really happening. Get the lay of the land. And once you have a clear, mutual understanding, and it's a concise look as well as to what's happening, once you get those 3 or 4 elements put into play, you actually know how then to take it to the next level, which is getting the right product for the right place. Probing is one of these things that is so important, and yet it is it's the skill set that salespeople have the most trouble with. I would say that the difference in my experience dealing with great salespeople, good salespeople, and really bad salespeople is this skill set, their ability to ask questions. If they can't ask a question, they really have no business selling. And what sounds harsh about that is the fact that you're hired to tell a story, right? I've hired you to tell the company story, to tell the product message, to continue to move the brand forward. But the reality is, if you try moving that all forward before knowing what you're moving it forward into, you'll blow it. You won't necessarily make a sale ever. And the reason why is because the person you're trying to talk to won't have a context for which to put it. It'll be like shooting fish outside of the barrel and in the big ocean. You're just going to throw stuff out there and none of it's actually going to stick. There was a VP at Xerox a long time ago that said the whole purpose that we have for asking questions and for understanding what's going on is so that we have context for how you make decisions. Because if I know how you make a decision, I can then better position my products and my story so that you'll make a decision in favor of what I have to offer. So oftentimes when I'm dealing with folks that are trying to have a conversation with another and they may shut down, they may not be giving any information up, I find that they're asking the wrong question. May have the right idea, but the wrong way to state the question. In probing, there are 2. There's an open-ended question and then there's a closed-ended question. The open-ended questions are so important because they're the ones that get the other person to talk freely. They typically start with, "Tell me about," or "How is this working for you?" or "What if we did this?" or "What's happened over the last several days since we've been together?" or "the last several weeks since we've been together." By starting out the conversation with these open-ended questions and staying in the open-ended environment for a long period of time, actually, You're able to get the other person to talk freely. And the more that they talk, the more information you gather. Salespeople also have this really interesting scenario that I think is kind of interesting, and that is they often walk in thinking they know what's already happening in the environment, and in reality they don't. The person you're trying to call on and talk to, they're the one with the answers. Your job is to get them out of that kind of closed-inness, to share that information with you so that you can help get to a solution at the end. I liken it a lot to an airline pilot, and he's flying an airplane. There's got to be a way that we can organize our questions that makes the most sense. And this airline pilot scenario is the one thing that always pops into my head when I'm selling. I always come in looking at the 30,000 foot level. Because if you've ever been in an airplane at 30,000 feet, the world is huge. You have all kinds of opportunities. And you can see everything. And if I'm a pilot, I also know at 30,000 feet, I have enough altitude that if something goes wrong, I have room to maneuver. I've got options. The next set of questions that we want to ask are still open-ended, but let's bring it down to 20,000 feet or 15,000 feet. Narrow the scope down. If we narrow the scope down, again, it's just like we started this conversation about probing. We then begin to direct the conversation the way that we want it to go. But at 15,000 feet, now you're just digging in for a little more detail. You're honing in on the one or two things that you know you might be able to respond to with your product or services that you're currently offering. Then as you continue down the probing process, let's get down to 5,000 feet and 2,000 feet. Just like with the airline pilot, you're ready to land. You've got the airplane zoned in, you know exactly where you're going to be. Your options are also less abundant at this stage of the game. You're pretty well narrowed. You're pretty well committed to where you want to go. But if you've done that probing skill set correctly, you're exactly where you want to be. And you've got the other person with you in this conversation exactly where they want to be. We use that skill set of open-ended or open probes. Then when we get down to this 2,000 foot level, we start using closed probes. And closed probes are those questions that we ask that elicit a short answer, a yes or a no, a confirming answer. The reason why we want to do that is so that we make sure, as we said, are we on a mutually beneficial, clear and concise plan together? Has this worked out? Are we where we need to be? And if by asking those closed-end questions that we find out, yeah, this is exactly where we need to be, then we're ready once we have this entire package. We know the picture, we know all the pitfalls, we know the opportunity, we know the competition, we know everything we need to know. We then can move on to the skill set of supporting, which then puts the right product, the right service into the right situation. And that's the beauty of this whole thing. The other interesting thing about probing is this conversation can go anywhere. This is the dangerous part of the entire conversation because you're allowing control to be passed again back over to the customer or to the prospect. And they can take it in any direction that they want to. The skill set of probing allows you to ask questions strategically to get back on the track, get back on the map that you have for this plan. I like it a lot. This is also the skill set, frankly, that most salespeople don't know how to do well, and they don't spend any time doing. My homework assignment for you and anybody else that I talk to in this whole world of selling is go home. Spend 20 minutes a night or 20 minutes as you're driving down between appointments and write down or mentally jot down questions that you should be asking. And every time you go to a new account or you go to a new prospect, start practicing with those new questions, the high 30,000 foot questions all the way down to the closing 2,000 foot questions. By asking good questions, you'll become an extremely good sales rep. It's not about the close as much as it is about the questions.